Hello Kaotika.
Hello Iceman Shield.
Since you have been gone, I've missed having someone to debate with, and thought I might like to reenact one of our old debates.
Well then, let's rehash the announcement of the GTX 590 cards 3 months ago.
Alright, go ahead and start whenever you are ready.
According to some rumors, and Engadget, Nvidia will announce and/or release their GTX 590 dual-chip card at PAX tomorrow. According to member at Robs, he tested his GTX 580 at those claimed clocks, and noticed on average 22 performance drop for single card, which when looking at reviews, would mean GTX 590 should end up slower than 6990 at default clocks.
It doesn't matter. It looks bad for Nevada, so of course he's going to post it, proof or no proof. Funny how just the other day he said he didn't post the leaked info about the 6990 because it could be fake or inaccurate, yet when some unsubstantiated info surfaces about Nevada,
should have created new account here and posted it with that, and no one would have had any problems with referencing to that, especially if my signature would have an NVE card in it. But seriously though, he has the card, definitely isn't he supporter, so I don't see why he would lie either, especially since there's so many others with GTX 580 there who could make him look like an idiot by doing the same test.
So, have you tested the 6990 then? You're unbelievable. A short while ago in the other thread you were taking information from Sly 580 reviews, and trying to use that as a basis for 590 performance against the 6990 reviews, even though they use outdated drivers, different specs platforms, different reviews sites, and yet you say he can directly compare? You crack me up.
I was using cases where the platforms and reviewer were same, only drivers different, and made sure to note that the drivers are different in these benchmarks.
Want to bet whether the 590 will have some sort of overclock mode that will use up to 450 W? I think it will.
Even with such, it should still have its handful due the fact that Cayman seems to be better chip for performance per watt. Only way it should beat it is by using more power.
That's only because AMD have been binning the chips with the least leakage, so these aren't your average Cayman chips. Looking at the reviews for the 6970 you see that the difference in power consumption between it and the 580 isn't a significant amount. The 570 is virtually even under normal conditions, so if Nevada have been binning their best chips too and they are getting around 570 performance and better power usage, it should end up a very close run thing.
These aren't the best chips necessarily. HD 6950s have leaps and bounds better perf/watt than HD 6990 to 6970, and most of them mod to 6970s even with lower voltage, ending with lower consumption.
Quite a few reviews have mentioned it. They've been binning chips for the 6990, so they can't all be wrong, and what better use to put your lowest leakage chips to? So let's leave the fortune telling to the gypsies. You haven't been too accurate of late.
Binning the chips, yes, but there's more than one type of best. There's the best for power consumption, and then there's the best for how high it can clock. Chips binned for andiles are most likely the best combination of these two, while HD 6950s get the best for low power consumption and 6970 best for clocking. Dave Borman or some other AMD guy actually said that on HD 6950 to 6970 the split does go like that. Of course there was no talk about 6990/Antiles chips at the time.
365 W. That's slower than the 6990 seconds TDP, isn't it? What was you saying earlier about the 590 seconds power consumption CB?
That they can't do lower consumption and beat 6990. one or the other of course could be done, but not at the same time. And if the consumption is counted in the same way as rest of GTX 4XX/5XX series cards, the actual consumption is notably higher than HD 6990.
It doesn't have to be lower, just close enough to make the difference in power consumption a non-issue. Of course, this is comparing the cards at their default speeds. You couldn't use the AUK mode on the 6990 to compare to the 590, as that wouldn't be fair comparison, as you always say about comparing factory overclocked cards against reference speeds.
Of course, the tests should be done at the reference speeds, which for HD 6990 are 830/5000 MHz, and not any octet speeds.
Of course it's the same. It's not a real 590. You were asked to use your imagination and imagine that these downclocked 580 seconds in SLI are akin to a 590. It's an imaginary 590. This is just semantics though. Your other point, you are correct, but there are still things like 3D Mark 11 which can be counted, since Guilty Bystander's system is very similar anyway. You should also ask Samsa if he disabled the tessellation optimization in the Surface format ops too.
I can ask, but as far as I know, there still isn't any tessellation profiles in the latest drivers, only a bug in CCC which sets you to whatever force tessellation max you had set if you click AMD optimized, instead of the AMD optimized level. That is, if you manually set it first to, say, max 8x tessellation allowed, clicking AMD optimized would keep it at that level instead of actually reverting to everything is allowed unless profiles, which aren't there yet, say otherwise. Application preference still works like it should. Simulated isn't same as imaginary, even if you go to semantics. It's not the same as real thing, but not imaginary either.
Your English still needs some work. No, they aren't the same thing, but you're still wrong. You were required to use some degree of imagination to accept that the simulated 590 performs close to how a real 590 would. Imaginary means that it only exists in the imagination, which is the case with Samsa simulated 590. It didn't actually exist, it was not real, it was imaginary. The 590 was simulated using two 580 seconds, ergo, the 590 was imaginary. That's the thing about the tessellation optimization. It defaults to AMD Optimist, and so AMD could start adding profiles at any time without our knowledge. So it would be wiser to disable it as a precaution anyway.
I give up.
You are going to be banned.
Yes, I am.